In 1998, philosopher Raymond Gaita's book Romulus, My Father was published. More than simply a memoir of childhood, it looked with the clarity of a child's view at the sometimes difficult yet passionate world created by his parents, disturbed and uprooted after the European War. In 1950, 4-year-old Ray arrived from Germany with his mother Christine and his Romanian father Romulus, a blacksmith who was to work on the construction of the Cairn Curran Reservoir near the tiny settlement at Barringup, central Victoria. They settled in a weatherboard house, Frogmore, on the isolated landscape that Ray fell in love with. Romulus, My Father was also an exploration of what it was to be a good man, the way Romulus was good. His story of bringing up his son when his wife Christine became overwhelmed with mental illness and despair was full of instances of what a good man must do in the face of his wife's situation. Christine had an affair with Mitra, the brother of Romulus's best friend Hora, having 2 children by him. Their stories ended in tragedy, with Mitra killing himself at the age of 27 in 1956 and Christine ending her life 2 years later on the eve of her 30th birthday. After some years, Romulus himself descended into insanity.
I thought there were 2 things. Perhaps most especially, I think it's very hard to make a film about madness without bathos or sentimentality. And in this case, there are 3 mad characters, Wacek, my mother, and my father. So I thought the chances of this coming out well were very small. And also, I began, because I thought that one of the things that mattered most to me about the book was to characterise the way in which my father could behave to Wacek, who was visibly insane. In the film, he's not. In the film, he's more or less, as Richard Roxburgh describes him, an amiable, homeless man, right, who cooks eggs in his urine, but he was visibly mad, and one of the things that I realised about my father, and indeed Hora, was that they responded to Wacek without a trace of condescension. And I try in one of these essays in the book to say why I think that is so wondrous. I know that almost everybody would say we should behave like that, and I'm now 65 and I've met about 3 or 4 or 5 people who could do it. And in the book, in this new book, I try to explain why I think it's such a difficult thing and why it's so wondrous when it occurs. And I thought, well, if I've only seen a handful of people do this in life, why would I think actors could do it? So that was one resistance. And I think whether he did it intentionally or not, it was wise of Richard to portray Wacek as merely a homeless, eccentric man, because I don't think he could have done what I would have wanted him to do, and then I would have been disappointed in the film, and I'm not disappointed in the film.
When the film came out, I remember you being worried and that there was a scene that was dropped from the film that was in the original screenplay. Yeah,
there was a scene that was dropped in which I have to talk about them as characters. Ray and Christina in the shack Frogmore before Christina has Susan, and she hears voices, and thereby making it clear that she's suffering from a form of mental illness. That scene was dropped, and so when people see the film and they see Christina's incapacity, so marvellously acted by Franco Potenza, to look after Susan, they think this is postnatal depression, which leaves them wondering why on earth she came in and out of Raymond's life and all the rest of it. And when I saw this, I told Richard Roxburgh that they would judge her badly. And he said they shouldn't. And I said, well, maybe they should or shouldn't, but the fact is that they will. And I've read countless reviews of the film that sort of say things like, well, it was tough and it was a good film, and the poor boy, a good thing that he got through it all right and came out reasonably okay at the end, especially having such a bitch of a mother. That's the sort of sentiment. And that upset me a lot, and it was no consolation for people to say to me, look, she's just a character in the film, because nobody says to me, look, Franca Potente acted this character who has no existence outside the film really well. They all say Franca Potente acted Christina, your mother, really well. So I was deeply hurt by that, and I thought I might want to respond to it in some way.